came to him one day who was impoverished. He was poor. To Al-Hassan. Al-Hassan was a man who lived a pretty good lifestyle. He lived in a decent house, he wore good clothes, and he was able to eat good food. While this Jewish man had holes in his clothing, and he wasn't eating on a regular basis. The Jewish man said to Al-Hassan, your grandfather, Prophet Muhammad, was a liar. He said to him, Anta mu'min, you're a believer in Islam, wa ana kafir, and I'm a disbeliever in Islam. But you have good clothes and good food, while I have hardly anything to eat and I have holes in my clothes. But your grandfather said, this dunya is a prison for the believer, but it is a paradise for a disbeliever. Al-Hassan replied to the poor Jewish man. He said that my hope is that the reward that I will get with my Lord in the next life, this life would have seemed like a prison for my soul. But the rejection that you have in faith, this poverty that you have in this life, this will seem like Jannah, this will seem like paradise how you're living now in poverty in comparison with the punishment you're going to get in the next life for your disbelief. So it doesn't mean we're not supposed to have good things, good clothing, decent food. It's narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he came to give the khutbah, he would wear something called a burda, a cloak. And in the wintertime, he would wear one from Syria, and then from the summertime, he would wear one from Yemen that was made of the best wool of its time, because it's like cashmere wool, perhaps. He didn't walk around dressed like a bum. As some Muslims mistakenly today, and other people of faith, mistake that vows of poverty or living in poverty somehow makes one more pious. We see this in some of the different religions that have monks taking vows of poverty. This is not piety and this is not righteousness according to the Islamic tradition. We are to live an austere lifestyle. And what this tells us is that our ultimate hope as Muslims and as believers is not just seeking pleasures in this material world. Our ultimate target is not simply in and of itself trying to live a false material paradise in this earth. This is a problem that some of us have as African Americans in general, and even some of us as Muslims. Because historically in these United States of America, we have been denied historically certain avenues towards economic empowerment. There, in the history of slavery, very few slaves had trades where they could go and make a living for themselves. Many of them had to suffer in the sharecropping industry where they basically were made legal slaves. And we know that there are certain laws, Jim Crow laws, and institutional racism that has blocked African Americans historically from economic advancement. So because from this history, many of us have sought instant gratification through materialism to make us feel better because we've been denied certain access to material and property historically. Booker T. Washington talked about this in his book, Up From Slavery. Some of the same stuff we see right now. Over 100 years ago, where black people would work all week, sometimes all month. Then they would go to Washington, D.C., get dressed up in a fancy suits that were sold to us that even white folks didn't wear, and then ride on the carriage rides through downtown D.C. and through the Capitol, paying expensive prices for these carriage rides that white people themselves didn't ride in, to make ourselves feel better. Because we've been denied so long. The Muslim and the one who follows the guidance given to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa sahbihi wa sallam is to be more enlightened in their worldview and in their outlook than this. We seek the pleasure of Allah, who Azza wa Jal, by worshiping Him and by working to help better the condition of His most excellent creation, the human being. And we do this based upon faith. And we do not measure our success so much so on how much wealth we can accumulate for our individual selves. A Mercedes-Benz is nice to have, and in and of itself does not mean or signify success. In and of itself does not signify success. How we've been trained by the world. We've been trained by the world that the PhD is better than the electrician. We've been trained by the world. The multimillionaire or the billionaire is better than the small business owner. If the small business owner takes his wealth to better humanity, and that other businessman who's a billionaire hoards his wealth, that businessman who maybe only makes $50,000 a year is better than the businessman that makes $2 million a year. He's better in the sight of Allah. Continuing with the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, "Kumata'ud dunya qalil." Say, the pleasures of this material world are but a little. وَأَخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ مِنَ التَّقَىٰ وَلَا تُظْلَمُوا فَتِيلًا. But the latter life, the home of the destiny, is superior. It is better. Whoever has taqwa for Allah and who does not oppress. And who does not oppress. There are two types of oppression. There is the oppression of people to exploit other people. There is psychological oppression. It's called harbun nafsiyya in Arabic. It is psychological warfare. There is literal oppression through laws and with guns. And then there is a second form of oppression, which for our case, since in America and as a Muslim community, is a bigger form of oppression. And this is called zulmun nafs. When one oppresses their own soul. This is mentioned in the Quran. When Moses was tasked to do something and he failed in his mission, he came short. He said, "Rabbi inni zalamtu nafsi faghfir." My Lord, most certainly I have oppressed my own soul, so forgive me. As the story is told in the Quran, but also in the Old Testament about Jonah, we call him Yunus alayhi salam in the Quran. When he was charged with the responsibility in the city of Nineveh. And he basically, because he didn't get that instant satisfaction, because he called the people towards Nineveh and he didn't accept the oneness in God, he didn't get instant results. He didn't get that instant gratification he was seeking, so he basically gave up. He went out into a boat, went overboard, and was enveloped in 3 stages of darkness. The darkness of the night, the darkness of the water, and the darkness of what we are taught is the big fish or the whale. He oppressed himself spiritually, he oppressed himself intellectually, and he oppressed his own soul socially. And when he came to the realization that he had oppressed himself through not getting that instant gratification he was looking for, he said, "La ilaha illa ant, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin." There is no God but you, O Allah. Glory be to you, and surely I am of those who have oppressed their own souls. I am of those who have oppressed their own souls. So we should constantly be aware of always looking towards the final destiny. This ayah Quran, as we read earlier, said also, do good as God has been good to you. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam defined